being mentally fit is not just being disciplined and persisting, but having that presentness and focusing your attention on what you're doing exactly when you're doing it, not wavering and being really steady and mindful of your body movements, your sensations, and the way that you interact with this world. When we operate from a place of insecurity, weakness, and anxiety, this energy can't really find a way out of us. And so it manifests as disease, it manifests as anxious attachments, and other ways that make us feel really small, invisible, and unimportant. And it's hard. It really is. I still struggle with showing up to the tasks I give myself to do, even when I have to-do lists. And that's when I know that it's time to pivot. If I don't feel like I want to do something, then maybe it's time to take a break. Because forcing myself to do something just so that I can do it and get it done isn't really what being present is about. Doing things requires enjoying the process, requires listening to our intuition and making decisions that feel right in this moment and adapting when necessary so that we can become resilient and flexible and not hold ourselves to impossible standards that make us feel like we don't matter or that what we do doesn't matter. Combating imposter syndrome takes a lot of practice, time, and mostly patience. I know I can be very impatient, especially when you only have 8 hours in the day and things just don't feel like they're moving at the pace that they should be. So how do we find confidence with our creativity? How do we really enjoy and immerse ourselves in the process of making and building a container that feels really sacred and pulls us to it so that it can open up those sides of us that we want to explore, instead of feeling like it's a chore, instead of feeling like it's something we have to do in order to feel productive? How do we make it so that this daily grind of work doesn't get in the way of our play? The first thing is being gentle with myself. This means taking care of my body, feeding myself, and nourishing myself with foods that make me feel good, like fresh vegetables, produce, and making a meal from scratch. That way I know exactly what I'm putting in, and it makes me feel like my efforts are coming back to me tenfold. When I nourish myself, I feel a sense of completeness, a full circle moment of I am able to create things with my hands and feed my body and experience this cycle of rebirth, death, and renewal. And it's an odd, magical, mundane thing. But in this culture of hustle and fast results, cooking is one of the simplest ways to slow down and realize our body is exactly where it's supposed to be, and we only have it for this lifetime. And if we don't take care of our bodies now, then we can't do anything else. Feeding my body and getting in touch with it really helps me feel present and feel grateful for all that I have learned, my knowledge, and using my hands, my skills, and practicing the recipes I make, and a sense of fulfillment that creates these endorphins and juices that otherwise I wouldn't get to experience. And it just feels very luxurious even. It's a privilege to be able to sustain myself and create things from my intuition. This extends to the way that I speak to myself as well. My mind is a very chattery place. She likes to yap. And when I don't slow down to pause and take out the criticism, take out the negativity that doesn't serve me, then it can get really heavy and stuck in there, kind of like a bottleneck on like a supply chain. When you have constant production of things and you're not checking the quality of what comes in and out of your mind, then it's easy to get fed up in here and feel like you have a million things going on because you haven't slowed down to see if each thing you say and each thought you have is actually useful to you. On this channel, I really like to redefine things. What is usefulness? What does it mean when something is useful? It's not just productivity. It's about it serving your needs, your core needs, and it makes you feel expansive and alive. And it produces out more flexibility, fluidity, and joy, even laughter and ease. The only thing that you get to worry about in this life is yourself. And when you have worries about what may or may not happen, you're wasting your time on things that simply don't matter. Instead, you can think about how to narrow the gap between your goals and you by raising yourself up to the level of your goals. So instead of putting your goals on a pedestal, you are training yourself, training your mind, training your body to be more fit in order to find the best match for you. Gentleness is not easy. It sounds easy in practice, but when you apply gentle and firm pressure to yourself, you're able to actualize clarity in your actions and intentionality in the time and energies that you use in your life. The more conscious we are of how we utilize this, how easily influential we can be, how easily influential our subconscious can be, the more you can steer yourself towards a direction that feels right for you. So in order to make sure that you are showing up correctly, it's important to check in with yourself. Checking in allows you to see where your expertise is and where your experiences lie. That way, you're not pretending to be someone you're not. Imposter syndrome originally, I believe, came from a study done about women in a graduate school environment where they worked for 5 or more years, but they still felt like they weren't good enough or they belonged, or that somehow they had cheated their way into being there. So there's a reason that a lot of us women feel like we're not good enough, and that's not our fault. It's simply the way that this system, this society is structured. The propaganda that we see, when you always see neurotypical, beautifully symmetrical women or men on TV, in movies and media, accomplishing what they do with ease, and you're not living that life because you're not a paid actress, there can be a gap in understanding how you can also come to that conclusion of feeling like you belong there. In other words, because we haven't been modeled examples of what a healthy, loving, supportive environment looks like for women who are sensitive, emotionally intelligent creatures, it can be hard to feel like we are part of the environment because we are trying to fit ourselves into this environment instead of the other way around. And so this is where we get to let go of these frameworks, these preconceptions that you need to be a certain way in order to succeed. You need to do this and do this in order to be able to do this, and not give ourselves these limiting beliefs. At the same time, you're able to make choices that feel expansive. So if you're in a meeting for a job, or if you are auditioning for something, and you feel like because you haven't had the experience, then maybe you don't deserve to be there, rejection is going to happen. You're going to get rejected. You might fail a couple times, but this is where one of my favorite tricks I use comes in, and that's using visualization. So I've been reading the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and it has really helped expand the way that I think about hypnosis and visualization techniques in order to feel more confident and feel like I am practicing and using my body in a way that is truly useful. The utility of a skill, the utility of an experience is determined by how much you immerse yourself in it and how much you're willing to suspend your beliefs in order to let go and co-create with the energy within you. That sounds really loaded, but basically, being useful is not just about providing function. It's about seeing a situation from the entire picture and be able to dissect it piece by piece in order to create this total process of something that feels truly synchronous with you. So let's say you want to write an article, but you're not sure where to start. The first thing I would do is write a couple bullet points of what do I want to talk about? What are my experiences? How does this relate to me? And why is that important to talk about? The more you're able to tell your story and express yourself, the easier this fuzzy picture can become. And this allows you to see yourself in a clear way that destroys the illusion of imposter syndrome. Because when you always go online and you see what everyone else is doing and you feel like you're behind, that's just the illusion of imagery. That's the illusion of the society. It's making you feel like you are not doing enough. Well, guess what? You may never be able to do enough. And that's kind of good, because if you did everything, then what else is there to do? What are you going to do for the rest of your life? This illusion of insecurity can be unraveled and unwrapped by understanding yourself and reflecting back on everything you've already learned and accomplished in order to take steps towards things that is actually fulfilling, that will sustain you for the long term, that will feed you, your brain and your body, and not just compare you to external things you see in order to make you feel small and pressured. When you look at women and people online and they have this body that you want, the hourglass figure, they have the accolades and accomplishments you want, this degree, they have the followers, the clothes, the aesthetics, right? Everyone always has more than you, it feels like. But you're forgetting about yourself. You're forgetting about all of the people that may look up to you because you have what they lack. So it's all about perspective. How can we change our perspective so that we feel more sure and more empowered in our own abilities to conquer and adapt to any situation? Our ability to communicate with our friends, to be funny, to be entertaining and enjoyable, to create a good time for everyone. So I mentioned Psycho-Cybernetics earlier before I went another route, and I want to come back to this point. Psycho-Cybernetics talks about rewiring your brain, changing yourself. The easiest way is to take a situation, take a goal, take a problem that you want to solve, and find out as much information as you can about it. Some examples include if you have a meeting coming up with a really important person, if you have a job interview, if you have a casting call, if you have basically anything where there requires in real life interaction, social interactions where you want to show up as your best self. You want to show up as someone who believes themselves, who has that confidence that you desire. Take that situation, learn as much as you can about it. Look at who's going to be there, research the people who will be there, check out the vibe, right? Are people older? Like, what is the audience? What do you need to do in order to find out as much information as you can? After that, visualize and practice in your mind. So this is where we can conquer the fear of being perceived. You can immerse yourself in the situation by closing your eyes and imagine the room that you'll be walking into. And before you even do this, you do want to be deeply, deeply relaxed and focused. Then you're going in and you greet them. And we start this process of internally rehearsing. What does our movement look like? What are we saying exactly? How do the words that we say feel in our body? Rehearse it word by word, action by action, so that things feel familiar to you, things feel comfortable. It's almost like you're preparing yourself to be an actor. And if you know the person that is interviewing you, or if you know the people that will be at this party, you can find out about them and like what their interests are and how you can do more research in order to appeal to them, in order to acknowledge them and make them feel important and seen. So this is the play of encountering a situation and alchemizing the mysterious allure into something that feels more familiar and secure for you. The more you're able to do this, the more your body can practice and you can get to understand the impulses and triggers that come up. If this is hard for you, it might be helpful to write down exactly what you want to say and then rehearsing it in your mind, seeing your environment. What are you wearing? How are you acting? What are you saying? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? Making the situation as detailed as possible. Because imposter syndrome usually comes as a result of FOMO, fear of missing out. And when you're not in the beautiful destinations and parties and social events, you feel like you're missing out on society. You feel like you're not part of society. And what better way to prepare yourself than to rehearse in your mind all the ways that you would act and behave if you were there. Our subconscious does not know the difference between a fake emotion and a real emotion. That's why it's so easy for us to cry when we watch movies. If I told you today that my cat just died and she was 15 years old and I loved her so much, she was the love of my life, honestly, and we played and I used to chase her around and fetch with her, and I've moved to like 5 places with her, and it's like such a shock to me because she was the first pet I've ever had. I'm rehearsing that in my mind of her death, right? I'm evoking those feelings of sadness and misery. We can literally create those feelings within ourselves. And there's something really juicy and magical about being able to manipulate our minds that way. And that's how you can stay disciplined, mentally fit, overcome that imposter syndrome. Being fit is different for everyone. What looks healthy for someone may look differently for another person. So the less comparison you do, the easier it can be to navigate what feels healthy and sustainable for you. Mental fitness is training your mind to see the positive outcomes and preparing yourself for any situation that happens so that you are decreasing the amount of fear and increasing the amount of possibilities and excitement, all the while knowing who you are and your own abilities, especially to communicate under these circumstances so that you come out feeling accomplished, successful, and sure of yourself. Let me know what you thought of this video. I would love to hear more. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, I will see you soon, stars. Until next time. Stay cool, it's hot.